Very good morning to this Saturday the 6th. I welcome you, our dear viewers. This is the dialogue today. With me, the studios, already my guests have already arrived in the studios, and I welcome them. Very many things have happened during the week, and it is a week of sorrow, but with the grace of God, we are here to praise the Lord that everything will be possible. Despite what is happening in eastern Uganda and other parts of Uganda, but we pray that God is in control. I welcome all those who were at Canaan yesterday. It was a marvelous day where people received Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. And I call upon the people who were not there tonight that on Sunday we shall be at Canaan to see that we pray to our Lord Jesus Christ. Very many things have happened during the week. One of them is the address of the President, which was almost the third address on the economy, which was yesterday night, and very many resolutions were passed, and in this program we shall be able to discuss one or two in the program, in what the President talked about yesterday. In our neighborhood, we have what the forthcoming elections, which will be on Tuesday as per the Constitution of Kenya. In our neighborhood, and as Uganda, as East Africa, we are all brothers and sisters, and we hope that we shall be able to put our ear of what is happening in that area as far as our economy is concerned, because very many Ugandans and the East African at large are worried about what is going to happen in Kenya. But when we pray to the Almighty, everything will be okay. I remember when we had our elections here 1 year ago, many people were worried about what was going to happen in Uganda, but we went through a peaceful election, and we pray for Kenya to have a peaceful election come on Tuesday. Our reporter Apollo Tusime is in Nairobi. With time we shall be joining him in Nairobi to tell us exactly what is happening. Today I'm told, I was talking to him before he came on air, that they are going to have a last rally in Kasarani, so you will be live in Kasarani to tell us exactly what is happening in our neighborhood in Kenya. We shall also move to Mbale, where our reporters are every corner with Salt Media, every corner from northeast up to the end in the whole world. We are there to give you exactly what is happening in the world. So, without wasting much of our time, this is the dialogue. I'm sitting in for Apollo Sima, who has crossed the borders to Kenya to see that we bring you what is happening in our neighborhood, Kenya. With me in the studios, as I have told you already, I have my guests have already arrived in time. My name is Moses Kajangu, who is sitting in today to see that we dialogue today and we discuss most important things that is taking place in our country. I will start with my brother, who doesn't need a lot of introduction, Mr. Richard Tinkasimire Baguma. All of you, during those days before we were born, most of us, when we were moving, this is the man who had almost turned the airwaves. By then there was a monopoly of Radio Uganda. The man who could hear a very big voice. You could think that the radio is going to burst. This is the man I'm seated with today. Though he retired, but not retired, but still is in the communication. He's a communication specialist. Mr. Baguma, could you greet our viewers?
It's always a pleasure to come. I am hoping that I can live to be 100. And these nice words about my having been on air long ago continue to thrive, but God is good, God is great, and I am hoping that He can keep His goodness and greatness to this country and others.
Thank you. That is Mr. Baguma. On my neighborhood, I wouldn't call him my neighbor from Kenya, because doctor, he neighbors that place and is well conversant about the issues of Kenya. Doctor, when people they talk about doctor, they start sending me messages. They want medication. They don't know you are a doctor. You tell the people so that they don't disturb me much. That they fall sick and they start saying doctor. Dr. Gerard, Werihe, I can call you Werike. I can call you Werihe. All that I have, in fact, I have mastered those names very well. Wanzala. Please, if I've misspelled your name, you are at liberty to correct it because it belongs to you according to your constitution. So, greet our viewers.
Good morning, viewers. You haven't pronounced it badly. You know, in Bugisu we have a number of dialects. If you go to Budadiri, they will call me Werike. If you go to Central Bugisu, I will be Werishe. Then you go to Namisindwa, they will call me Werike. So all the accents are correct. It's always a pleasure being here. I'm not your neighbor from Kenya, but I can confirm that from my place, Vuvutu, to Kenya is a walkable distance. It's less than 30 minutes, I'll be inside Kenya. And if you cross the other side, the Bakusu, we speak the same language. And as I talk, they're in Vumutoto, in Mbale, dancing Imbalu. So we are the same.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Gerard. Is research and the civil engagement at African Leadership Institute. I'm glad to inform you, Doctor, that I was part and parcel of the founders of this
Institute.
Marvelous organization, which used to assess members of parliament, the performance and other things. And I know it is still doing a very good work to see that there is work done at the Parliament of Uganda.
And it got a hit on its head. When it started talking about MPs, they started hammering.
We shall also talk about it when we reach there. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Baguma. You've been reading the papers, you've been watching Salt TV, you've been watching other social media, and you see what was happening in Elgon. Many people have died. I think now the people are still dying up to now. They are still retrieving bodies over what the floods that has affected the people in eastern Uganda. And we have seen many people going on the ground. We have seen the office of the Prime Minister that is responsible for disaster and preparedness going at the ground. We have seen the leader of opposition going at the ground. We have seen religious leaders. We have seen everyone going at the ground to see that what is happening. It commiserate with the people who have lost their lives, including the President of Uganda, who has come out to give some small token for the people who have lost their lives to have a decent burial. I want you to give it a snap of see that what are you going to talk about this disaster. I want you to talk. I know you have been a journalist. You are a communication specialist, and you are well conversant with the laws of Uganda. Yes, these such things fall under the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness headed by Engineer Hiraronek, but we have seen there is a lot of loopholes, there is a lot of gaps wherever a disaster of this nature comes up. We have not seen machines on the ground, because we have seen very many people that are coming up to make sure that they retrieve the bodies, and we have not seen government 100% taking part in this retrievement of these bodies. And I know there could be some other bodies that are still underground, but we have to pay tribute to the people at the ground, especially those who helped to retrieve the bodies. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bwana Kajangu. You see, you talked about Eastern Uganda. It's a kind of a dichotomous situation that you have on one side people dying of rain, too much rain and its consequences, and on the other you have people dying because of lack of rain within the same geographical environment. But you also talked about communication. For me, I think one of the things that has been bringing my heart down is the way we have been communicating around these disasters. As the mainstream media, of course, as social media, citizen journalists, none of the two, in my view, the disasters that come out of the too much rain, but also the disasters, especially the deaths that are happening as a result of lack of rain and the starvation, none of these are unforeseeable. They are foreseeable. I think both the areas where I come from, one is the communication media world, but two is the civil society world. I think we do very, very little, and I think that's a negative on our part, to drum up and push the early warning actions, the early warning, but also the preventive or at least mitigating actions. We don't. So we have also been, we are part of this society, and we have been in the movement, in the flow of knee-jerk reactions, which happen. We certainly know the Elgon region is prone to these disasters. We have a reasonably equipped and reasonably accurate weather warning or weather prediction system, and this they put out reports on a daily. We have an idea what volumes of rains are coming, but not any one of us in the media or in the civil society world are acting to warn or even to mitigate or even to push the duty bearers at local government and national level to do this. So I think this, we can come and talk nice and take the high moral table and accuse government ABCD, but we also must look inside. And if when we look inside and we reflect, I think we still have room to contribute to reducing on the disasterness of these occurrences. That's one. You talk about the reaction, because you see we tend to focus on the reaction after. We do our postmortems, of course, but also we tend to blame only one side. Yes, the biggest duty, of course, is on government, no question about it. But we also have duties. And also, for me, where are the local governments in this? The local government, I know. So the other thing is how we react. I agree with you. The last time I think we would see at least some efforts by the UPDF and generals on the ground with some basic equipment. Not so much, but okay. But that's our capacity that we have. We really haven't seen that much reaction. Anyway, in fact, one of the things that have been interesting is the bickering amongst, including senior government officials, about who is doing what, about which mandate. And you know, if you have sat in a few of these, Kajangu, you have been sitting in some of these as a journalist, but also as a leader in the Parliamentary Press Association, you know that when the mandated debates come, even the little action that was going to happen today can take a month without happening. Just in that rope pulling, and people are dying and bodies are rotting, no decent barriers, no one. So I think these two for me have characterized our reaction. Of course, there have been some efforts. It would also be, I think, dishonest of me to come and say there has been nothing. Yes, you can see at the highest level of government business, the Prime Minister flew in, was there to galvanize attention and action about this. We know very quickly a few, I think it was 130 plus billion shillings was quickly voted, and Minister of Finance was instructed to look for this money. We know that some NGOs, including the Uganda Red Cross, we know that some donors, I have seen some donors putting their money into this. And one hopes that we can do the quick reactions we need, but we can invest in early warning and mitigation moves and initiatives.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ndugu Baguma, for that explanation. And I hope the authority, that is the office of the Prime Minister, is taking notes on what we are debating here, because it's mass media where information flow. I want to turn to my brother, Dr. Gerard, because wherever I was told, wherever you hear of the names W, Wanjusi, Wapakabulo, these people come from that side. Tell us exactly what is your take on this, as far as this disaster has...
if his banana plantation was also not taken.
Of course, following your area. We want you to tell us exactly what was it in the past when you were growing up. Did we used not see such a things happening? What is the problem at the ground as a man, as a child of the soil?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kajangu. This is an interesting topic. The whole of this week, actually, I've been to so many talk shows discussing this same matter. I'm going to speak as a researcher, but also as Mugisu, who is born in the Elgon region. First, in 2013, the World Bank released a report saying that about 200,000 Ugandans every year are vulnerable to disasters, meaning that we were a high-risk country that needed to monitor how these occur. Now, when I was in primary 5, we used to learn about landslides and flooding and risk areas. We knew we had Kasese, that's Rezori. We knew our Elgon was prone. And then we also knew areas in Chisoro, though they were not as prone as these other ones. Now, what did we do? In 2019, following the tragedy on Lake Victoria of the ship Templar, it was a Templar, MV Templar, which drowned with hundreds of people in Lake Victoria. We commissioned 2 studies and we placed them at the National Policy Dialogue at the Uganda Management Institute. We were privileged to have the Minister of State for Disaster Preparedness, the Honorable Echweru, and then we produced a policy brief to inform the policymakers. What did we find? One, that of course the level of vulnerability was very high, like floods, pests, and so caused by rains. We also areas like Karamoja that are prone to hunger. It's not the first time that people in Karamoja are dying of hunger. Every year they die. Only that this time I have seen, I commend one of the members of parliament from Karamoja, Honorable Faith Nakut, that she had to bring it in parliament. But usually Karamoja leaders are quiet. I don't know for what reasons, but people are always dying of disasters, of hunger. Now, as a Mugisu, what have I seen? We have coexisted with the rivers and the mountain for a very long time. But over time, there is encroachment as the population, encroachment on wetlands, as well as on the mountains. People now cultivate up to the river banks. I think our law says 200 meters away from the river, but we are not respecting that. And then secondly, whereas the land ownership in Uganda belongs to the citizens, the role of planning for the land in urban areas is for the government. In this case, it is even decentralized local governments. Now, I grew up in Mbale. I know the city very well. What do I see? If you take this China-Uganda Friendship Industrial Park, it was a rice-growing area. You'd find Bagwere, Bagisu. When the water comes from up, it is absorbed in that wetland. People cultivate super rice, and then some water is drained into Doko, and it ends up in Impologoma River. Okay? But what do we see now? You build the industrial park. Yes, we need the jobs. But have you done a study? We know all these impact assessment reports, environmental, are produced, and then you find them as approved. But now it shows that there was a wrong decision made somewhere. You saw the whole place flooding. The water has nowhere to go. You go and look at an area like opposite the police, Mbale police, those who have been there. When I was young, that whole place had an urban forest. I don't know who told our leaders that cities are not supposed to have forests. There are cities in the world with forest. Now that forest would absorb water that comes from Bumutoto and so forth, and then it goes up to Nachibiso and disappears there. Now today, what do I see? Fuel stations. I see schools there like Oxford, Comprehensive, and Human Settlement. So every smaller space, we are occupying it. And this I will not even blame President Museveni, because there is local leadership. But all this has been encroached. So, whereas nature is fighting us, but we're helping nature to fight us. Now, about the response. You know that in the Public Finance Management Act, we created something called a contingency fund. It used to be 3% of the annual budget. Okay? But we saw an amendment where this contingency was reduced to 0.5%. Meaning that we are leaving the role of response in terms of resources to only development partners. we are ignoring. Now, government has a very robust structure from the ground. You have heard of disaster management committees. They are there from the district to national level, coordinated by the OPM, but they have no resources. Government is applying.
Also, I should remind you that also according to our constitution,
Yes.
They put in place what they call the disaster fund. And if you have to check in that account, I doubt whether there is anything in that.
No, like if you say 0.0 something, I calculated yesterday, it's less than 200 billion. So if you have given Karamoja 130 billion, where is the balance? Supposing Nyamwamba in Kasese riots tomorrow, River Nyamwamba, do you have the funds or we shall only cry to Red Cross? So there is an issue where we say it is better to prepare and prevent than to cry when it has happened. For instance, we proposed training of communities around in terms of disaster response, that before the government comes in, maybe we also proposed mandatory evacuation in areas that are very prone. I read a report from Uganda National Meteorology Authority of June, July and August. They predicted above normal rains in Elgon region. They even gave the implications that, what were the implications? One, we are likely to see floods. When we see floods, we are likely to see loss of property. We are likely to see pests and diseases, both human and diseases for human and livestock. All of these were projected. But who consumed the report? Can I challenge the OPM, or Office of the Prime Minister, to tell us that they read this, they consumed these reports, and were able to prepare for some of these disasters? For hunger, that one is a problem. If you go to Buyende, the Basoga will tell you, we are dying. You go to some parts of Bugisu, especially Bushudeiba in Tororo, there's no food. If you go to Karamoja, what happened to the extension services in this country? So whereas we are looking at Mbale, where we have lost so far about 26 people, Karamoja, they're in hundreds who have died of hunger, and elsewhere. So we need to look at this problem holistically and find a lasting solution.
Thank you, Doctor. And before I tell my producer to prepare for me, my team, which is in the Mbale right now, to my other group and the rest.
I forgot to say something. I give you some information. Yesterday I was with a member of parliament who belongs to PAC, and then she told me she had received information that
that is
Public Accounts Committee Central. I think they were kind of monitoring what's taking place following the LOP who went there. They are telling me 20 tons of maize flour were delivered to Bugisu, and 10 tons of beans, but the food was stuck somewhere because they only had 1.2 million shillings for distribution. But I was wondering, even if you have 1.2 million shillings, what does it cost to take food from a store in Maluku to IU for instance?
Okay, thank you. I think, Doctor, I
need 100,000.
I want to turn to you to Richard about the issue of response. Former State Minister for Disaster, Mose Echwebu, I see there is something Echwebuism missing in this thing. I don't know, we can create as many words. I see the Echwebuism missing in this response. And I saw last time the minister saying that they are understaffed, that's why they have left the rescue to the people, and I did expect such a statement to come from a minister in charge of disaster. As I wait for my producer to connect me to Mbari.
No, I think Kajangu, you are expressing your lack of preparedness for the truth.
Exactly.
The minister told you the truth, that they don't have resources, told you the truth, that they do not have staff. You remember during the COVID, you know, the staff in that place were taken out. And so it doesn't just come easy that you have people with the capacity. By the way, people don't understand that the logistics of moving into a disaster situation.
Yes.
Yeah, people think that you just wake up and go. No. The the situation, the assessments that one has to do, but also the level of preparedness. For example, you find the disaster response organizations have some stores, have some things in their stores. In the case of government, yes.
When do we prepare ourselves? Do we prepare when, or is, you know, in the communication, what they call proactive and
yeah,
you know,
but also,
prepare ourselves.
But also, let's look at this. When you have taken out the entire group for corruption, whatever it is, that had the capacity, the knowledge, and expertise, because they were corrupt, and you had to take them out, and that was correct. And then you bring a team with inadequate experience, expertise, and knowledge in these areas. But also, you tighten the mechanisms for acquiring a disaster response supplies. So that even when a disaster strikes, that when you go through your normal requisitioning and purchasing and what system, which you want to happen in a disaster, and it should be like the one happening. Because you see, you have all these guidelines about procurement. You must do this and do that and do that. That means you spend 3 weeks without responding to a disaster. And this official who's seated in here and the previous one who was in the same seat was arrested for not doing that, they will sit back. But also, let's be also honest. Civil servants have not been paid. Or some of them are just starting to get paid. And this was official. Pensioners and everybody. So where is the money in the first instance? Is it really there that people are not asking for it? So our lack of preparation for a truthful minister telling you that there is no money. Yeah, it might not be politically or diplomatically correct to tell such truth, but the person is telling you this truth. That's one. But you see, the consumption of reports, and that's what I was talking about, that this information to help us prepare is actually available within government. It is government institutions which produce this. So it is reliable information for government to act on. It is just that the mechanisms for acting, if you have disaster management committees that are existent on paper, but they don't actually function. So that's the first step that tells you that a disaster is going to happen, because the disaster management committees themselves are disasters. So we will keep doing our postmortems. Yes, we will keep doing these postmortems. We will keep having hunger in that region. We shall keep having. He has talked about River Nyamamba. If River Nyamamba rioted like it has done previously, we will have deaths, and we shall come here and mourn them. So the tourism. Of course, there was an Abanjaism. The Right Honorable Prime Minister flew in there, called these people. But technically, the Right Honorable Prime Minister can only give directives and can only give political statements. The Permanent Secretary will tell you, no, PPDA tells me that I have to take 3 weeks. I have to advertise and I don't know what. And you can't move. So I also think that while you need charismatic individuals, the tourism type, we also need very responsive systems and mechanisms. And for me, we need sanctions when you don't respond. I think that's one of the major things that are lacking. If people didn't respond, what are the sanctions? Who is being sanctioned? No one. Yeah, so business will be as usual. The researchers, they were Dr. Wanzara's, will research, will document, and the documents will gather dust. That I can promise you. And we shall come back here and do postmortem. So somebody must take. I was waiting for the president to speak about this passionately. I actually thought it was going to be one of the main areas of focus for his speech.
Because one of the things they captured, it was more of
no, I actually thought
blame on the people who are encroaching on the wetland.
Yeah, but
being that the cabinet is sitting on Monday, we are going to see as many people being evicted come next week.
Well, I pray for you to see them. I am not sure that we will see them, but I am not as convinced as you are about that happening. No.
Yeah, let me go to Doctor. Doctor, you have heard the explanation of Ndugubaguma about what is the prepared data and other things like that. Yesterday I had an opportunity to have a talk with the executive director of Uganda National, Uganda National, you know, this the one which is responsible for standards.
So the National Bureau of Standards?
It's the National Bureau of Standards, and he was saying that in that area, they are going to start looking at the food which they are going to give the people who are affected. But I have online, if my producer is ready, I have Tumwebaze. If Tumwebaze is ready, if Tumwebaze you can hear me, please, you are live here. We are on the dialogue, and we have the very distinguished guest with me, Dr. Gerard and Mr. Sinkasimine, inside here, and we are discussing exactly what is happening in that area. Godfrey Tumwebaze, if you can hear me well, please, the microphone right now, I'm passing it to you. Tell us exactly what is happening in Mbale and the Elgon region.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kajangu. My name is Godfrey Tumwebaze, like you said, and thank you so much, our visitors in the studios. Right here, as you see, the background, or what is behind me, is it was a constructed house, fully finished. But right now, as you see, it is down. This was the result of floods recently that was in Mbale, and where I am right now, I'm in Bungoko village, Bungoko Nambale village in Mbale district. I'm going to talk to people. Some of them, they are victims. Some of them lost their lives. Others, they lost their properties due to floods that was in Mbale. But good news. Yesterday, the Minister for Presidency was around, and some people were compensated with 5 million, especially those who lost their loved ones and those who lost properties. And others, they are still in the process of compensating them. You will allow me just use English and Uganda such that I can communicate with the residents and the leaders because they may not understand very well English. So you allow me, we use the local language, Uganda, English, and if they can accept, they obviously talk. Is it Lumasaba? Yes, okay, Lumasaba. So I'm going to first talk to Chairman, Vice Chairman, Vice Chairman of Mbale District, to give us a clear picture and tell us exactly how many bodies have been confirmed dead so far ever since the floods were reached this place. We want to know the exact number because there was a confusion about the total number of the people who were taken by the floods. We had 26, others were saying 24, but currently I hear there are 29. So allow me to talk to Vice Chairman Mbale District to give us a clear picture of what is happening and so far what is going on. Are they going to compensate the people who lost their lives, the properties and everything? What is the government going to do to help these people also gain something? And we also talk to people who survived these floods. We are live on Soul TV, and of course the world is watching you. First introduce yourself and tell us what is happening so far and the situation in Mbale region.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Wamagale Tony. I'm the Vice Chairperson in Mbale District and at the same time the Secretary for Finance and Administration. I want to say that on Saturday night we had heavy rains, and after having heavy rains, many properties were destroyed. Just as you can see, many crops have been destroyed, a number of buildings have been destroyed, and even people have perished in the process. But I want to say that after those floods, we had to communicate to the Prime Minister of Uganda, and she rushed very fast and reached on the scenes. But I want to say that after reaching on the scenes, she tried to give us some food items, some tarpaulins, and beans, push and beans, which was equivalent to 30 tons. But when you look at the magnitude of the destruction, it is so big. A number of buildings have been destroyed, many people have been displaced, and when you look at the food items they are giving to these people, you look at it, it cannot even take them maybe 4 days. And you realize that even before these floods came in, there was already famine. Now, which means the floods have again intensified the whole situation, which is now worse. When you look at these people, most of them have been displaced. I think you have seen a number of houses. Some of them are in the camp. Here where I am here in Ivungo Sub County, we have already put some people in the camp because many buildings are breaking daily. Why? Because of the water flows. But I want to say that as a government, they should come in very fast. In most cases, we tend to prepare after a disaster has already hit. And now when we prepare when a disaster has already hit, you find that you don't help the right people. Now, the government should come in. The Prime Minister came. You have even realized that some of the bodies were just removed using the local people, not even people who were trained. The police officers should come on ground and so on. When you look at the bridges, most of them are being washed away. Like even the bridge we are having here, it is a highway from Malaba, that is at the border, up to South Sudan. But when you look at it, it is even already in a hard situation. You find that at the end of the day it may collapse. So the government has to come in and intervene in such situations. People have been displaced. How do they feed themselves? Some of them don't have blankets. Some of them are even sick, have already developed malaria. So in such a situation, when we don't intervene very fast, we are going to create another worse situation. So the government has to come in and help those people.
Chairman, we want to know the confirmed figures of the people who are taken by the floods.
Those ones who have died both in the city and the district, the number has reached so far 29. Even as I speak today, we are going to bury another dead body that is in Ibukie, the sub-county. There's another one. And even the water, as it was flowing, some people just entered in the water and they were killed. They were destroyed by water. So the number so far, which we have, is 29 as per now. But as time goes on, we shall be discovering other dead bodies. But so far we have 29 dead bodies, which have buried, others we are burying.
Okay, so what was the process that was being used to consider the people who to be compensated? The process, how were you considering those people who lost their lives and their beloved ones and the properties to be compensated by the government?
I want to say that when the floods hit and the landslide hit, what the Prime Minister did is that those ones who were near, he gave them first of all 1 million, which was from her own pocket. But what the President did, he ensured that he sent the Minister for Presidency, that is Mile Babalanda. And Mile Babalanda brought the presidential condolence, which was 5 million per dead person who died. But I want to say that as they brought that money, the number for the people they brought was 23. And the number has now increased. 29. So the Minister for Presidency said that she's going to write a report and take it back such that they can bring more money. But now they were going to reach those very places, the sites where people had died, to confirm whether that person had died too. We have a doctor who is in charge who was also giving a report to show that maybe these people really died because of the floods and so on. So after that confirmation, that's when they compensate. Not just somebody to just come up with a dead body and say this one was also as a result of floods.
So they were compensating those who lost their lives. Then what about those who were injured, those who lost their properties? What are they going to do for them?
When we had an interaction with the Minister for Presidency, in fact, the Prime Minister had to come to see the situation and went back. But when we interacted with the Minister for Presidency, she said that she's going to write a report. I want to say that as I speak now, there is an old lady whose legs were broken. And in the hospital, they need 1.8 per leg. That is 3.6. But they are stuck. Crops have been washed. The land which they may sell, cannot be sold. So right now, the Minister for Presidency said that she's going to write a report and maybe they will compensate them. Then these ones who lost their crops, we had sent a team on the ground. That is for disaster and even Red Cross. They have come, they are assessing to find out the extent of damage. After finding out the extent of damage, such that they can compile and compensate them. But right now, the people we are helping majorly are those ones whose houses were destroyed, those ones who cannot afford a meal at that particular moment. That's why I was saying that if the government does not plan beyond, we are going to have a terrible famine and people are going to die because a number of hectares have been destroyed because of the floods.
Okay, so lastly, you as a leader and your cabinet from the district, what solution do you have for these people who have been affected by the floods?
Thank you. If there is an area which is not funded so much, it is the local government. That's why whenever noise we make to the Prime Minister, Now, when you look at us, we are just encouraging these people, some of them to go and stay with maybe relatives, others have been put in a camp to give them some little items. But as a district, we sat as a disaster committee and we incorporated some of the NGOs. I am happy Caritas came in, Red Cross came in, they are the ones coming in to help. But as a district, whatever money comes, it is conditional. So we have nothing much to do.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I get back to the studio, I just want to show you what happened last time when the floods took over happened in this place. I just want to show you one site, one area where one person survived. Anja kutokogerako noyo omukade alikowa. Aha. Yeah, you allow me use Uganda because these people may not understand English very well, but of course I'm going to talk to them. They explain to us what happened. Abatulaba ku Soul TV ono omukyala gwengenda okubalaga y'omu ku bakyala abawonye amazzi ekibambulira ky'amazzi era ng'eno ye nnyumba ye gye mulaba gy'abadde asulamu ne famire ye nga bali abantu 8 abaali basulamu eno ennyumba. So amazzi bwe gajja gamusanga mwene ennyumba yennyini wano wenyimiridde era mugiraba nga bwefaanana. Naye yayinamu mutabani we ye kye baakola, mutabani we yayambako mama we n'ayimirira ku muti, jjajja we n'ayimirira ku muti kati ye jjajja we n'amulinnyako amazzi ne gasobola okubanga gayita waggulu naye bo baali balinnye ku muti. Ngenda kubanga njogerako naye wano asooka atubulire engeri gye yasurvivingamu amazzi gano. Mami, tuli ku Salt TV, ensi yonna ekulaba. Abantu baagala kumanya otubulire engeri gye wawonamu amazzi gano. Amanya go bakuyitaani?
Nabugwere Aida.
So kyali kitya sooka otubulire?
Amazzi nga bwe gajja twava wali ku kigogo ne tujja ne gatukubira awo ne gatutwala eno ne gakuza eno ne gakuleeta ku kiti kino ne twekwata ku kiti. Omwizukulu wange oyo ye yankwata yankwata ne tuyimirira wano ku kiti naye n'aninira ku kibegabega n'aniina waggulu ku kiti kino.
Okay. So ye yalinnya wano ku muti.
Yayimirira wano.
Yayimirira wano.
Yandeeta wano. N'ayimirira wano nga gali kumusitula ebigere. N'agamba nti kwata onyweze ekiti ninire kuggwe nine waggulu. N'alinnya kuno n'alinnya waggulu.
Kati gwe n'osigala ngo?
Nga n'esigala nga nkuute wano bwenti.
Ng'alinnye wano.
Ng'aninnye ku kiti kino.
Soko sembereko wano otubulire kyali kitya?
Ng'aninnye wano bwenti.
Kyali kitya?
Kolo olunaku ekiro nali neebase mu nju. Zaali saa 7 ogw'ekiro nga neebase nga ffenna twebase mu nju. Amazzi gasookera mu kisenge kyange nga mangi nga kino ekyabakadde n'abaana nga yo teganaba kujjayo. Kati nze nesituka nendaba nga bonna beebase nsimusa bonna ne bayimuka nenzigulawo oluggi nga amazzi gali muno baasi nembafulumya. Kati nayagala tugende ffenna mulundi gumu naye okugenda ffenna nalaba nga jjajja gali mutwala tali kusobola foosi y'amazzi eyo kutambulamu tugende. Basi nemugamba kati gwekwate ku ttooke eryo sooke nsitula abaana babiri lino nsooke nsitula abaana babiri nga babiri bo mbalese ku jjinja. Ejjinja lyali awo ennyumba yagwako. Basi neyekwata ku kiti wano kunanka ku ttooke wano netwala abaana babiri eri ku kasozi eri nga ku sheero. Asi nemala nenkoma era nensitula era babiri nembatwala era ku sheero eri okukomawo jjajja. Kati afoosi yali nnyingi nnyo amazzi ne gatandika okumira. Kati ettooke nalyo ne ligwa lyagwa eti nenkwata jjajja omukono wano nemukwata wano namukwata wano basi nga gali mutwala talisobola kuyimirira. Ettooke lyagwa ne gankuba foosi nengenda wali nenkwatako omukono guno ogwadyo guno nga guno gwakono nga amukuute. Basi nemukwata nemusika nemuleeta ku kiti kino neyekwata kuno nemala nemujja ku kiti kino nemutwala eri ku guruveeri oyo kwayimiridde. Basi namala n'alinnya kwako akati ke baasalako ako neyongerako obuwanvu katini. Kati nze nange nga ndi wansi neraba nga gali kuumira nange nemugamba jjajja ndikwagala ninnya ekiti naye ng'ekiti ekyo sisobola kulinnya sitisobola kulimba sobola alinnya ekitizo okuva mbeerangawo sirinyangako ekiti ekiwanvu. Kwolwo olunaku nayagala okulinya ekiti naye nga kiseera enkuba ekubye ne mugamba jaja kwata wenywezaawo nze amaazi gali kuumira akulinyako katini ngende ku kiti waggulu wali eri kakali kamenyeka ne mulinyako basi neninyanze ku kiti nengenda paka eri ku kiti waggulu wali nze wenabeera jaja ne muleka wano nga siina kyakumuyamba ekirala ne mugamba wenywezeraawo era nze nabeeraawo paka nasirika nendowooza nti gamutuute kati olwatuuka ku ssaawa nga zituuka 12 nempulira ng'ayogera n'agamba amaazi gakendeedde.
Okay. Thank you so much. So currently, our viewers, that is the situation here in Mbali, and very many residents are camped in different areas, but the situation currently is not good. Tumwebaze Godfrey, let me take you back to the studio. We are still here in Mbali to give you the updates about the floods here in Mbali.
Very much Tumwebaze Godfrey, who right now is in Mbali to tell us exactly what is happening in that area. And our viewers, you have seen what is happening in that area. And what we are going to see in the next 1 or 2 weeks, we are going to see famine in that area. We are going to see the outbreak of different diseases, including cholera. We are going to see many things, people being displaced. But without wasting much of our time in the studios, back in the studio, as I told you, I have very prominent people in the studio that we are discussing a very prominent issue that happened during the week. Dr. Gerard and the Ndugu Tinkasimire, they are with me here in the studio, the dialogue, to discuss these important issues. Let's go for a short break. When we come back, we shall be switching to Kenya because the elections will be on Tuesday, as we shall be joining Apollo Sime to take us through exactly what is happening in Kasarani, where most of the rallies are going to be. Don't go away. Come back from that short break, and we thank you for having been with us this morning. That the dialogue that starts at 10 up to 12 noon, and you have seen what was happening in Mbale, and you saw people are homeless, despite the support of the president which has extended to the people in Mbale. But we pray that the ministry in charge of disaster and preparedness take charge to make sure that people don't suffer. In fact, this time Minister of Education has to be part of it. Minister of Health has also to come in to see that they address those problems. My guest inside, we may not go back to discuss much about what is happening, but in our closing remarks, we shall. You put down the notes, what you observed on air, as Mwebaze was giving us what was happening in Elgon region. But it's not only Elgon, Mr. Tinkasimira, we shall also see things worsening in Kigezi, because we have seen people giving us that signs things are not good in Kigezi. You saw those hills. In Kasese, you know what happens, it doesn't tell anything, it comes up. We shall also be looking at such a thing. But now, Mr. Tinkasimire, we want to go to start discussing issues about Kenya. Kenya decides come Tuesday, according to their constitution, every first Tuesday of the second week, that's when they go to polls to elect their president. And this time they will be electing their 5th president. And in Uganda, I think we are almost, I lost count, how many, which number are we now? It's about 9, around that. But in Kenya, almost we are the same, but they are going to be electing their 5th president. And President Ruto, former deputy president,
He's still deputy president.
He's still he hasn't handed over. Then Raila Odinga. The rest are also there. Kenyans will also decide. We don't know. The most educated man, he may surprise many of us to see that he becomes a president. And when he becomes a president, because most of he's a Rasta, and most of I read his manifesto. If he becomes a president the following day, I don't see that in Kenya we shall see many people alive, because he has called for hanging, firing squad, suspending the constitution. I don't know how he's going to rule the country. But all we see the fight is between Raila Odinga, former prime minister, and former opposition leader, He's still I don't know if he's still a opposition leader up to now. Then we also have Ruto, deputy vice president, and who says that the current president Uhuru Kenyatta in Uganda, if they say Yamwite Mabika, so he had something to make sure that he was in line, but he found himself that he was not in line. In Kenya, we have our reporter, our dialogue. The person who hosts this program is in Nairobi, who is taking us through who will take us through what is happening there. But my producer, before we go to that, if Apple has prepared Apollo, there is a small documentary which Apollo captured in that place. I wish you, because if you could give me about one or 2 minutes to make sure that our viewers see what is happening in Nairobi, so that we are able to join our brother Apollo to see him, who is in that cold place. I'm told it is very cold.
Yeah, the last I was there, not too long ago, it was quite cold, and I think Apollo, you will see how he's dressed.
So that is Apollo. Let's go ahead and see what is happening.
Ennaku z'omwezi zibula 2 zokka bannakenya bagende ku kalulu olunaku olwokubiri lwe bagenda okulonda abakulembeze baabwe okutandika ne president ate balonde ne ba governors balonde n'abakulembera ebitundu local governments. Naye bw'oyita mu kibuga Nairobi olwaleero olunaku lw'omukaaga bukedde nga abantu bali mu bukuukuulu obw'enjawulo bakubaganya ku nsonga z'ebyobufuzi n'okwongera obuuli okwetegekera akalulu akagenda okubeera olunaku olwokubiri. Wano we tuyimiridde ye Moi Street, eno eri mu kibuga wakati wennyini Nairobi, nga bwe twakulaza olunaku lw'eggulo nti abantu babadde nga abamu balinnya baasi bagenda mu bitundu eby'ebyalo gye basobola okulondera, naye lwe bukeredde olunaku olwaleero era n'abalala abasigadde mu kibuga nabo tubasanze nga bali mu bukuukuulu, era twandyagadde tubayiteeyitemu tubabuuze ki kye balowooza ku nsonga y'akalulu, beetegese batya era kye kituleese enkyaleero. Nja kusaba cameraman wange adde tutambule tubayitemu mpola mpola. We will ask some of them and ask them how they are prepared for this election. Gentlemen, how are you today?
First time. Fine. Yes.
And how are you prepared for this election on Tuesday?
I am a very prepared person. When I come here in the morning, I come to tell people to vote for Azimio because I consider myself a brand ambassador of Azimio. So right now, what I've been telling them is that they should turn out in large numbers and make sure that we vote blue so that Raila Odinga assumes the office of the president. Do you have another question?
Though we are just 2 days to go to elections.
Yes.
I want to pick your opinion. Are you prepared? Has the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission prepared you very well that you are going to make the right decision when that time comes?
According to what I think about the IEBC, now that they have not raised any red flags, that means they are ready to handle this thing. And in my capacity as a voter, I don't have any other option, just to turn out and vote. And I am prepared to do that.
Campaigns are closing today.
Yes.
How has been campaigns?
Campaigns in Nairobi, I can say they have been a little bit different because we have not witnessed so much tensions. And we have been sitting around the table with our competitors and we discuss issues amicably. And I think that's one step towards the right direction. Because if I can be able to sit with my competitor, then we discuss issues, then agree or disagree to agree, then that's democracy at its best.
The turn-up of voters, how do you think this time around the participation of you voters will be? Are people really going to vote? Because yesterday we took pictures of people going to their villages, boarding buses, but the city is still, people are still in the city.
I think anybody who takes a bus to go anywhere is going close to the place that he registered to vote. If I was to vote in Bungoma, I would be on a bus today. But I'm still in Nairobi because I'm voting here at St. Peter's. So I think turnout will be okay. because people do not have a reason why they should not vote. Yes.
Jina lako?
Naitwa Joachim Wabuhe.
Joachim Wabuhe.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who can tell us about how are you prepared to vote? Are you going to vote?
I have ID. This is my vote.
That is good.
Yeah.
And are you ready to vote?
I'm ready to vote on Tuesday morning. We'll vote Azimio la Umoja, Papa na Mama.
Ndani kabisa.
Ndani. Tuko prepared very well.
Do you vote in this city or you will be going somewhere?
No. I'm in this city.
Thank you very much, Apollo, for giving us what is happening in Nairobi and Assault Media, and we promise that we shall be giving you exactly what is happening in Kenya. All corners of Kenya, we shall reach there. We shall give you live what exactly will be taking place in Kenya, so that you don't need to go to any other place but Salt Television and Salt Media app to see that everything you get it here. Ndugu Tingasimire, right now I want to cross to Nairobi to join our brother Apollo. Apollo, if you can hear me, you are live on a dialogue right now, and it is Sunday here in Kampala. I don't know what is happening in Nairobi. First tell us, you first greet our people inside there and our viewers who are watching right now. You are live on Salt TV, the dialogue.
Thank you, Moses, and salutations to the dialoguers, Mr. Tinkasimire Baguma and Dr. Gerard Wanzala. We are in Nairobi right now, but Nairobi today morning, it is a bit hot, contrary to what we found here 2 days ago. It was really cold. The weather was very cold, but this day the weather has changed for the better, and we are in a political mood. It is a political season here in Nairobi. Everywhere you turn, you'll see either a poster of a candidate, and you'll find people in groups discussing politics and probably what they think their future will be after Tuesday. But we are standing right at Kasarani Sports Center, where we expect the Azimio candidate, Raila Odinga, will hold his final rally together with his running mate, Martha Karua. Here at the stadium, you can hear in the background, it's all noise as supporters chant the names of their candidates. And across the city has been actually almost divided into two. Across the city, also in Nyayo Stadium, we expect again to have the final rally for the UDA candidate, Dr. William Ruto. So it is the final day, and we think the candidates, the two front runners, will try to optimize the opportunities in this campaign on this day, so that come Tuesday they will hopefully be voted into power. And there are several issues I want to put to the dialoguers in the studio. One issue that stands out now is the fact that the contestation about the voters register has been sorted. Yesterday morning, we received the news that the High Court has ordered that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission should use the printed register for verification and identification of voters. It has been an issue under contestation, as both sides had their own wishes on that particular issue. But the High Court ordered that the printed registers should be used during identification and verification of voters. That is now sorted. And of course, it is the last day, again today, when the final batch of electoral materials will be coming into the country. There has been also an issue about electoral materials. You remember the incident of those electoral materials that were found at the airport, that were impounded at the airport. Then there were also contestations on whether the election would be free and fair, in regard to the electoral materials. But again, that one somehow has been sorted, and the tempers are now low about that particular issue. But then what we also need to note is that the chairperson of the Electoral Commission also announced that the 5 officials of the commission who were implicated by the auditor's report for being, for having been found involved in that illegal alteration in the registers in areas, I think of Kisumu. Wafula, the chair Wafula Chebrakati said these officers have been punished. They have been suspended as pending investigations into alleged involvement in the transfer of voters as in the KPMG report. So those were the outstanding issues. But of course, there has been another report that points out few hotspots for violence. Kisumu, Gishu, and Nakuru, Mombasa, Nairobi, those have been pointed out as potential hotspots for violence. But of course, the police and security, especially through the spokesperson of police, Bruno Siosha, yesterday came out to say that they are working on it. They have deployed 150,000 police officers across the country to ensure that security is really, really tight, and assure Kenyans that the security is top priority. They won't anticipate any incident of violence. So 150 police officers have been deployed across the country to ensure that security is paramount and tight. Now, finally, let me come back to what is going to happen here at Kasarani Stadium. Like I said, it is the final run for the Azimio candidate Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua. They will be coming here today to give that final push for their supporters, hopefully to vote them on the final day. And like I said, across the city in Nyayo Stadium, UDA candidate Dr. William Ruto also is holding another final rally. The rallies are closing, the campaigns are closing today, and according to the Kenyan Constitution, they have to have 2 days after the campaigns, then they go to elections. So tomorrow, Sunday, and Monday will be days of rest, and then the voters will be going to polls on Tuesday to, of course, vote for their candidates of their choice. But like we know, it's not only presidential candidates that will be voted on that day. All presidents will vote. The president will be voted on that day, but of course they will be voting for governors. They will be voting for MPs and senators, of course, on that particular day, and the local assembly councils will also be voted on that day. So that is what we wait to see, how it will pan out all through this day. The supporters have swarmed the stadium here. We will have, of course, if we happen to see the footage we captured earlier, the stadium is almost half full at this point. But again, we will be after here be entering the stadium, and hopefully during the course of the day, we'll be giving you updates on this particular rally here at Kasarani Stadium as the Azimio candidates stand at the podium and give the final push of their campaigns in their presidential bid for the 5th president of Kenya, come August 9 next week. Over to you, Moses Kajangu, in the studio.
Thank you very much, Ndugu Apollo. Before you sign out, Apollo, you have given us only two candidates, Raila Odinga and Ndugu Ruto. What about the rest of the candidates? Where are they going to put their rallies, their rallies? My brother, the most educated man, the Rasta, where is he going to hold his last rally? Before you sign out.
Well, it's unfair, but it's a fact. It's unfair, but it's a fact. We have 4 candidates in this race for the 5th president of Kenya. We have, of course, Dr. William Ruto, Barbara Odinga, but we also have the Roots Party candidate, Professor George Wajakoya. We also have the Agano candidate, David Mwaure. There are 4 candidates, but like I said, it's and everyone knows that this is a 2-horse race. But definitely, it's a 2-horse race. But again, there have been allegations. I think you might have seen or heard about it, that Professor George Wajakoya supports one of these 2 front runners. So though he came out to dispute those allegations, there have been those allegations. Yes, he came out to dispute the facts, the allegations, and saying he's still in the race. But of course, when yesterday he was contacted on what he plans today, what we picked in the evening, he was not clear of what activity he has today. And again, the same applies to the Azamo Party candidate, David Mwaure. They were not very clear about how they will handle this day. But what I remember, David Mwaure will be going to a certain religious function today, and they hope to meet there their supporters and hopefully wrap up his campaign. Heading to the August 9 elections. But the fact and undisputed fact is that this is likely to be a 2-horse race between the UDA candidate and the Azimio coalition candidate.
Thank you very much, Apollo. My brothers are here. They are sending greetings to you. Continue enjoying that cold weather in Nairobi, but you are there for a fact, and you covering elections to make sure that come Tuesday night we shall be able to see who is the 5th president of Kenya. Thank you very much, Apollo. Apollo was live in Nairobi, in Kasarani. I remember I watched football from there when Uganda Friends was playing, and now to see that it is a political field, my brothers were in the studios, it is amazing, and things change in that perspective. My producer will be giving us some what is happening in Kasarani as we discuss. I will start with you, Ndugutingasimire. What do you take about the 2023 elections?
The
2022.
Yes. I think one has been getting a sense that the candidates have been extremely careful not to have a situation which took the current principles to the International Criminal Court. I think you could sense that all the election teams and all the candidates teams have been extremely careful not to be faced with the International Criminal Court or similar situations. So I think that has been an important element. The peace, despite the very stiff contestation, we have not seen real flares and people dying around this contestation. But I also think that Kenya, the politicians also double as business people. And you know, business people, usually their most important interest will be business anyway. So that also helps, I think, in making sure that there is as little disruption as possible, so that people don't make losses in their millions and billions. And these are the same people who are running around looking for votes. That sometimes is unlike here, where you find the politicians are politicians and their business is getting money from government in terms of surrender or other pecs, and sometimes what is going on in the business world is alien to them, but also for them is a source of where you can put your it's a sort of sacking is where you can put your sacking. So that separation can sometimes be a driver of some carelessness and recklessness, particularly when people are handling very sensitive political processes and they don't seem to be so mindful of how that will have economic impact. The second thing for me is that when you look at the current candidates and their running mates, you can see that every 5 years there is a regrouping of Kenyan politicians. So they are really, this adage that there are no permanent enemies, no permanent allies in politics, I think plays out very well in the Kenyan situation. If you see the Raila Odinga running mate, Martha Karua, and you see the things she has said about him in the past have been quite uncharitable. And yet the one who is now the bitter opponent is the one who was in bed with Odinga. Same thing, you know. The Ruto runner-up is a relatively new, you know, entrant into the top level political scene. He's been a player and a reasonably wealthy businessman. But also you can see that he's also moved allegiances. And that's the same with all the other people in the teams. So we would not be surprised at all, at least I would not be surprised at all, that if immediately after the election you see Raila shaking hands with Ruto, I would not be surprised at all. This happens quite a bit moving around. So we'll see that. And then for the Kenyans, I think this campaign has also has had what I usually call the cartoon effect. One character brings the cartoon effect to the campaign, which is very tense and very acrimonious, and that's the professor. The professor has brought a cartoon effect in the campaign. I think he's been a comic character. He's been bringing, you know, I have had him one time, he was on television and passionately defending the lots of income Kenya can get from selling the testicles of hyenas. And he was very passionate and very serious. And I was thinking, okay, woe and two hyenas in Kenya if this man becomes the president. I think they are all going to be castrated. I don't know how they will be bred. But you see, that also sometimes is useful in these situations which are very tense. But usually, like politics in the developed world, the politics in Kenya, around us are usually two candidate issues. And they are not so different in policy positions. No, you don't have major differences in policy positions. You also don't have major differences in their histories. They have all been part of government at very high level, and so they are quite intertwined. And you expect to see, in my view, not too many surprises out of this election. What is also, I think, very noticeable is how the courts have been impactful on the Kenyan election processes.
Right from BBI.
That to the point that you see even a presidential result could say, no, this one the courts don't allow. I cannot fathom, I cannot envisage that one happening here at all under President Museveni. No way. Yeah, so for me, I think the element that we have also not perhaps talked about is the level of the impact of the courts, of the legislative arm on the election processes of Kenya. And I think that's something we yearn for in this country.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Waguma, for that insight about the Kenyan election. That brings me to my question to my brother here, Dr. Gerard. Dr. Gerard, in Uganda here, we've been having what they call opinion polls. And we have seen in our last elections having opinion poll, President Museveni leading here, then Bobby Wine and other candidates who are in the race coming up. And in Kenya here, we have seen very many institutions. And I know you are a researcher and you have done, I know you have participated in some of the opinion polls here in Uganda and you have given information to some people out there. And you have seen in Kenya the two lions that are in these elections, that is Ruto and Raila Odinga. They have been bump to bump. And in the Kenyan constitution, for you to win election, you must have 50% plus one. Same applies to Uganda as far as our constitution is concerned, because we are all under Commonwealth. What is your opinion about these opinion polls? Are you seeing that these opinion polls that we are seeing, mostly this time Ruto is high, this time Raila Odinga is high, are you going to see that it is what is going to be reflected come Tuesday, 9th?
You rightly said it, that I'm a researcher. I know that sometimes opinion polls try to give a picture of what is likely to happen. It's not usually exact, but it's kind of a prediction based on statistics. But also, the shortcomings of opinion polls is that in electoral processes, contestation like this, certain groups usually have their own opinion polls, or you might have even media houses linked to that produce some of these opinion polls linked to a particular candidate with the intention of influencing the outcome. But nevertheless, I would like to say that the last opinion polls we have observed, including I think 2 weeks ago in Kenya by Ipsos, I tried to point to the fact that the Azimio candidate is slightly ahead, but the race is tight, and none of them is reaching the 50% mark. The latest by Ipsos showed Raila Odinga at 47, and then DP Ruto at 41, which is a 6% margin. But the same analysis tells you that there is a margin of error of -3 or +3%, meaning that it could be ahead, okay, by 3% or lower by 3%. So, but if you look at a number of them, about 3, they are pointing to the fact that one of the candidates is leading. But whether it will manifest into the final victory, that we cannot predict. The fact is that we have not seen the electoral map changing much, even with the exit of Uhuru, because we saw previously Uhuru Ruto that they would win Central, okay, yes, with almost 99%, and then you would see Rift Valley, that is the ethnic group of Ruto, also they're winning with 98%. But this time round, there is, although Ruto is leading where the majority of the votes are in Central, but he's at around 70%, meaning that the Uhuru factor by joining Raila is having some effect of reducing on the votes of Ruto. But if you look at where Raila has been winning consistently around the country, he still scores very high, which may give him an edge over the deputy president. But also I was seeing the new dynamics. The young voters in Kenya, especially between 18 to 24, who are very many, are behind the deputy president. Probably they are looking at Raila as an old man who may not appeal. And the women vote also, despite the fact that Raila is having a running mate who is female, we also see Ipsos saying that the women vote seems to be a significant vote going to DP Ruto. So what does it show? That we cannot be very confident that the Azimio candidate will win, but anything could happen. So I can, like as usual, but also one thing I wanted to say, opinion polls are usually correct or near to correctness where the environment is peaceful and people are free to express their opinion. For Uganda's case, we have had opinion polls that are very, very far from the truth, because sometimes someone can give you an answer out of fear. So, but for Kenya, we have not seen state institutions taking sides, beating people, and therefore I would believe that the opinion polls are near to reality.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Mr. Baguma, you are a man whom I have seen move all over the world, and I'm told you sit on the UN also as a permanent representative. We will also clarify on that. But looking at the opinion polls, like my brother Doctor has explained, you see it is bump to bump. and 50 plus 1 as the 50% plus 1 as per the constitution. Are we going to see a rerun in the Kenyan elections come Tuesday, whereby all candidates will not make it to 50% plus 1? Do you predict seeing such happening in Kenya?
Okay, I would clarify my association with the UN. Currently, there is a civil society support group for the UN globally.
Yes.
It's called the World Federation of United Nations Associations. I'm the global vice chair for the executive committee for the World Federation of United Nations Associations. But of course, I've associated with the UN in many ways over time. But this cannot be an opinion of my organization or related to the UN. This is my opinion, just as an observer, as an analyst, also somebody who has lived and worked in Kenya. I do not think that we shall have a rerun, personally. I think that the outcome will be clear. Very, very close, but I think it will be decisive. It would be, I think, very interesting if there was going to be a rerun. I think it would be extremely interesting. But you see, for me, the two candidates that are peripheral would not have much of an impact on a rerun anyway. Because usually where a rerun happens is then you have one of the parties, the lower parties, because now you have two who will be running. The lower parties would have some support that would bring a reasonable percentage of advantage. But in this case, there's really no advantage of voter percentages that the other candidates would bring. So it would be a very interesting situation to see a rerun. But for my prediction, for me, I think it is going to be a clear, cut. A very, very thin percentage, but clear.
I want also you to talk about the issue of court today. Rules in this favor, tomorrow rules in the other favor. Why is it that the world is moving to digital? Why is it that these elections we are seeing a lot of analog coming in? What could be the problem?
No, I think there is, first of all, I think in our part of the world, there is a lot of untruths about our level of digitalization. I don't think it is true that we are to a larger percentage digitalized in our systems. I think this narrative is largely driven by the online mob. I call it the online mob. The online mob tends to push a narrative, and especially where you have us, the elite, who really control the airwaves, who control the buttons, who come and speak. It's the same as who go speaking. You'll find Wanzara as the analyst here and another one and another one. You don't expect a multiplicity of opinions from the same individual. So that for me is the information flow order. The information flow order is such that the opinions of a few who control the buttons seem to be the opinions of the majority. But except for a mobile phone and for the very few things that people use, we are not very digitalized. So yes, we must be analog in our systems for now. If you said that the people who have digital capabilities are the ones who vote, I think you'll probably have 30% of the expected voters. So we still, but also look at the physical logistics. Imagine if we are going to vote today, how many voting stations would be operational in eastern Uganda with the current rains and displacement and the famine? So you'd find that the region disenfranchised. It's not too different from some parts of Kenya. You have to deliver materials by helicopter. But also think about the suspicions and the machinations that are created by institutions. The arrest of voter materials really at the airport for, I don't know, customs or whatever it is, that was political machinations. How do voters' materials travel and you claim a government institution that you don't know, and you don't even consult the body responsible, the Elections and Borders Commission? Why? And then you arrest and you create a drama, and you create a lot of media drama because you are making another narrative to the extent that these people in the Elections and Borders Commission are now careful not to bring materials until they have a complete node. And then you delay the paperwork for noding. So that you, like you said, that the materials come today. Why is there that? So you can see that even they play the games, and because of those things, then the court comes in, because the players will now go to court for redress, and so let's not be surprised if we see court cases immediately after the elections, the contestation that is happening, because I'm sure each side is documenting what they will take to court as legal issues. So and you see closely contested elections also are usually likely to go to court. There are so many areas that take people to court. But I think what has been important here has been the care that the teams are taking not to be violent because of the threat that hangs on their heads. I mean, if you see like Deputy President Ruto, the threat of the ICC never went away. It was not extinguished.
Yeah, it was.
So you have to be very, very careful not to be taken back this side. And when he goes back this side, and he is not in government, it will be good riddance. They will be happy to let him be there. So, so it can be, but for purposes of discussion, we can project a rerun. But in my mind, I think we shall have a clear result.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. I want to come back to you, Doctor. Looking at what is going to happen on Tuesday, and you know, almost our economy depends on our sister country, that is Kenya. Most of our things come from Mombasa, coming here. Though the president yesterday had some solution for what will be happening, or what will happen in Mwanza, Tanzania. Of course, using the cargo app for flying, which is not also easy, using the railway and other things. Dr. Werike, where do you see Uganda after elections or during elections? Like what happened in the last elections, whereby there was a fight and most of the tanks that were bringing oil in Uganda were being stopped from coming to Uganda. And given what the economy we are going through, you see fuel, there is a problem. So if they say now we are not allowing any vehicle to cross to Uganda, where do you see Uganda in the next 1 week or 2 weeks after elections in Kenya?
For me, it will depend. In 2007, we suffered a lot because, you know, there was violence, including allegations that Uganda had interfered with the result in Kenya and who was sworn in as a president. This time, my appeal would be to the government of Uganda that let's leave the Kenyans to decide on who will be the next president. The stakes are already high, with allegations that we are supporting one of the candidates. This candidate usually comes to support our president during elections. He usually comes up to capture, you know, the language is the same, and donates money to the churches during election time and telling people you vote for President Yoweri Museveni. So I'm not shy to say that because of that connection, there are, you know, suspicion that we are supporting one of the candidates. And also, Raila Odinga this week, while addressing professors and lecturers in Nairobi University, he said he doesn't want to hear anybody comparing Kenya with failed states around the region. And he actually mentioned Uganda as one of those he's ashamed of comparing Kenya with. So already there are signals. But what we need to do is to diplomatically behave well to ensure, because when Kenya sneezes, as a matter of fact, the economy will suffer. We are talking about the central corridor, that is the Mwanza, and using Lake Victoria. We have all been to Port Bello. How many ships are docking there every day? You know, we have, I think it's only, I always see these guys of Starbucks who offload the oil from that side, and we know that the port is as good as dead in Port Bello. So what I would say is that if the election by any case becomes violent, we are not prepared. We are going to see the fuel situation worsening. I watched the Prime Minister this week saying we have enough fuel, we are prepared to take this country forward. But as a matter of fact, it's not there. I was here last week, I told you, in Namisindu, Abu Duda, people gave up on consuming Uganda oil. It's already expensive. They're smuggling. If you go to Arua, you know Peki boys are consuming, they're selling Congolese oil. Now, in Uganda, we are not really prepared because I did not see any substantive response from the Prime Minister showing the level of preparedness we have. So the Central Corridor cannot meet all our demands.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Baguma, but where do you see Uganda after Tuesday elections?
I think Uganda will still remain on the same coordinates it has been on. We shall remain astride the equator. We shall still be the neighbors of Kenya and Congo. We have been here before the colonialists came to call us Uganda. We are going to be here after the 9th. There may be some disturbances and some shortages. I do not think there will be any worse than the previous ones. So for me, I think we will keep moving on. What is important, I think, for us is to look at where the most damage can come from, the most impact can come from. We certainly have an alternative route in Tanzania. It's a bit more expensive, it may take a bit longer, but I think we have used it previously. So for me, I don't think that we will stop. There may be disturbances, there may be shortages. The smuggling, where it is smuggling that Dr. Wanzara was talking about, will continue. I don't even know why they call it smuggling, really. It's cross-border trade. If you are failing to regulate cross-border trade, if our organs that are supposed to regulate cross-border trade are failing, we cannot choose the people who have needs and speak the same language and live in the same area and have passed from me and have brothers and sisters. You don't expect them not to have sugar or oil when it is across in the shop the next week. So I think this smuggling thing of artificial borders where we demonize our brothers and sisters, I think. So for me, Kajangu, I think on the next Saturday, we shall be here in the studio dissecting things. So I don't see disaster really, no.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. You are a communicator and you have done research in many media houses where you interact with very many media houses in Uganda and in the whole world as far as you are the other portfolio is concerned. We have seen in many countries, especially in Africa, where social media is ever switched off. And we experienced the same in Uganda. In fact, in Uganda last election, it was the worst switching off internet, and you cannot even access your email, not even accessing your WhatsApp or something like that. And I've seen early warning in Kenya whereby they are warning Facebook for promoting tribalism and other inciting the public. As a communicator, and I want you to answer that question in line with the Kenyan media houses. The whole world is watching Kenya coming on Tuesday, and these big people you see competing in elections, they own all these media houses. Are you seeing fair balance for people who will be watching out there? Salty media, we are the ground. We pray that they don't switch off internet so that we don't suffer. What is your take on that? To see that if the social media is switched off, is Kenya media houses able to give truth as far as the election is concerned?
You see, elections are partly also like a war. And usually the first casualty of a contestation is usually the truth. But also, truth can be very subjective, where you don't have mathematical or statistical elements at play. So where you have concepts at play, many times what is the truth? Because I think it's Arthur Koestler in Darkness at Noon who writes that the ultimate truth is penultimately a falsehood. So that's one. But two, you have talked I think, a very important matter, the ownership of but also the ownership of businesses, and therefore who pays for the media to be alive. Because the one who pays the piper is most likely to call the tune. But also for me, the media houses in Kenya have generally known standpoints. They generally have known policy standpoints regarding the candidates. They usually know this media house is very so even when the story comes, the same story will be treated in view of the editorial policy of the house. It will be positive about this candidate and negative about the other one. Even when you have the same statistics, even you have the same Ipsos report or other you know, very statistical report, what is chosen to be highlighted. So and also there is a lot of localization of the media because of the FMs and others. So depending on which region you are, you also play according to the political standpoint of that region of the majority. So yes, we'll be seeing now, I can choose Salt TV, for example, this morning. I can choose it of being an Azimio supporter. Yes, you were at the Azimio position, and all the people you interviewed were Azimio, so you are one-sided. So now that can be my truth. But if you ask the producer say, no, we decided that we will be here in the morning and we'll be there in the afternoon. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes truths can be very difficult. Yes. What for me, or overall observation, is that the Kenyan media has been very vibrant in highlighting the issues and the campaigns. I think they've been really vibrant. They have had fair, reasonable balance in spite of their ownership and their editorial positions. Warning to a social media platform not to go overboard, I think is a good thing. We also know, as a communication person, that communication space is one of the most abused spaces in the world. That we abuse these spaces in the name of freedom of expression, in the name of the right. We violate all other rights. So yes, that's why you have regulation, and the regulation should be balanced, but it should also be firm. And so for me, where a platform is overboard and is creating all this sectarianism and is fueling the likelihood of murder, I think that should be warned, and it should be. I do not foresee a closure of social media in Kenya. I don't foresee a shutdown because of this election. It can only be post-election and what the emerging situation. But I think for now, we will remain with all our madness. And I can tell you, there can sometimes be madness on social media.
Yeah, I mean, Doctor, we are nearing almost to the close of our program, the dialogue, which happens every Saturday from 10 to 12 noon. You've heard the communication specialist, Mr. Babuma, what he has talked about. On your side, what did you predict what will happen in Kenya? Are we going to see the Uganda, the Egypt, the South Sudan, the Sudan, and other countries in Africa where Tunisia, where social media is switched off?
If I rate Kenya and our own in terms of democratic space, including free media, free speech, especially around elections, I can say the bar is a bit above. Of course, like he said, warning social media users, especially Facebook and others, it is okay, because last elections here we witnessed a situation where I can say I'm on social media. I was not overposting, but I would follow people who were really abusing social media with a lot of ethnic sentiments, targeting certain candidates. I will not be ashamed. I saw particularly a certain group, I will not associate it with to NUP, but I saw a group of followers from the central blowing a tribal card. And this can be disaster if it's not controlled. So it is okay for the government to come and say, we are in charge. If you do this, we'll do. But I don't foresee a situation where they are going to switch off the internet and the Facebook. There are so many factors. You have seen already some institutions like the courts of law have already been positioning themselves, including influencing the electoral process, which doesn't happen here. So I don't see a situation where internet will be switched off in Kenya, and maybe even social media apps like Facebook being closed.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think we need to put the Kenyan elections into to God to help us to, and Pastor Aloysius Bijingo, the MD Salt Media, and house of prayer. He has been praying for peaceful elections in Kenya, and we pray that all other religious leaders pray for what will happen in Kenya. We are remaining with just a few 1 or 2 minutes to move out of this studio. But Mr. Baguma, just in 1 minute, the president's third address on economy. We have seen he's encouraging scientists to bring many cars, buses, companies. He's saying that in 20 years there will be no this petroleum thing, oil, diesel, all those things will be outdated. And we have already ours, which is coming out in 2025. Just a small thing about the address of the president in 1 minute.
Okay, so one.
And the coming meeting on Monday cabinet, where they will discuss about the disaster.
No, one is I have partly driven an electric car when I was living in Norway. I am waiting to have a Ugandan, they say there are Ugandan made ones which are supposed to be here. I'm waiting to see one. If I can afford it, I will drive it. I don't know when it will come. Switching to green energy is a global movement which is welcome. But as an investor in oil, as a country, I am not an individual investor in oil. I am, for me, hoping that we can still use oil and get that money. On evicting people from wetlands, I am perhaps the most pessimistic individual on that one. I think for many programs to come, Mr. Kajangu, if you invite me, I think I would still be talking about people in wetlands, and they will still be there.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. And this discussion is still going on our social media. You can still send your messages on WhatsApp and other platforms that we have. It has been good to have such a prominent man, that is Dr. Gerard. Thanks for coming for this Saturday. You are ever here, and our viewers always see you here. Mr. Baguma, thank you very much for the input. I must thank our team in Eastern Uganda, Tumwebaze, Makumbi, Peter Munyasa and the rest. Then our team in Nairobi, thank you very much for the work we are doing. This is the dialogue which comes every Saturday. That is from 10 to 12 noon. And I must say, don't go away. Keep on Salt Media. Other broadcasting programs are going next. Please, I wish you a happy Saturday and take care of yourselves. Asante sana.